Welcome to another edition of President's Corner with Parallel Employment Group. I am Kirk LaDu, the president of Parallel Employment Group, and today I'm joined by Renee T. Devine, our CFO. Can you share a little bit about your journey to becoming CFO and what inspired you to this position?
My journey started in public accounting after I graduated from University of Wisconsin. I realized pretty quickly I was not going to be a public accountant for the duration of my career. But while I was there, I had a lot of experience with CFOs and controllers and had an interest in their career. So I decided that I was going to jump to corporate finance. My first career there was in the entertainment industry, and it was a grueling position, 50 to 60 hours a week, year round. Initially, the investment paid off because the perks in the industry were very good for a young adult, but I eventually had burnout. So I followed one of my mentors from there to a Fortune 500 staffing firm, and that's where I built a lot of my base of staffing experience. And from that position, it was easy enough for me to transition to Parallel. At the time, it was PA staffing. It's worth noting I have not been in staffing since that duration. I took a bit of a leave, as I call it, in 2008 after the recession. Coming back out in 2010, I had decided I needed a break from staffing and tried my hat in corporate finance roles in a few different industries, large law firm, nonprofit, and healthcare. So across all of those positions, I should say, then I came back to Parallel.
You realized the big mistake you made leaving us.
The reality is that anybody that's been in the industry for years will say it's in your DNA. So I did rebound and came back nine years ago in my current role. So through all of those, as it relates to leadership and why I aspired to be a CFO, really it was the growth. I always wanted to grow and stretch my skills. I wanted diversity in my work. When I worked in the Fortune 500, we were very siloed within the finance group. So going into a more mid-market organization, I was able to have more diverse work and able to take a more substantial leadership position. And then I really enjoy managing the teams I currently manage our IT group, accounting and payroll, of course, and human resources and loss control. So having that variety and also having great teams. I have great teams, watching them succeed, helping them and managing them to success is a great part of my position.
Great. As a woman in the field, what are some of the challenges you've faced, and also how have things changed since you started so many years ago in this industry?
Yeah, I have been working. I've been in a finance role for 30 years. It's just been 30 years. And 30 years ago is certainly different than it is today. Gender bias was definitely different 30 years ago, as I'm sure it was 30 years prior to that. But the glass ceiling was it was there, everyone saw it. And one of my examples is when I was my early career, there was a female manager in my group who, she was the only female manager, and many men were promoted to partner ahead of her, although she was just as qualified and worked harder in many cases, probably even more qualified than some of her peers that were promoted. And we all saw it. Everybody knew it was what was going on. She was never promoted to partner in that role at that firm. But at that time, for example, 46% of CPAs in the US were women, only 5% of partners in accounting firms were women. Today, there's 57% women CPAs and 39%
Wow.
of partners in CPA firms. So there's still a gap, but it's definitely closed a little bit, or quite a bit. That in itself is fortunate.
So at that time, with a female manager that was not being promoted, while many male colleagues were, and the number of young female CPAs, was that something at the time that was openly discussed among the younger female accountants?
Certainly, yeah. Definitely younger female accountants saw it. We knew it always was under your breath. At that time, speaking up was questionably successful, so we've made strides there. That's changed certainly over the years. So yeah, and I think a lot of times women just change, either left, in that case, public accounting, or and moved on.
So what would you say, what unique strengths do you believe women bring to leadership roles?
The first that comes to mind is maybe not unique, but women may have a leg up. Probably emotional intelligence and their ability to handle interpersonal relationships in a judicious and empathetic way. Doing so, that brings a lot to an organization when you can make a collaborative, very healthy culture within your organization. The other strength may be women tend to champion diverse voices across an organization, bringing in a lot of different groups, making sure that people are captured in the decision making.
Do you think some of that has to do with a lot of the women who are in leadership roles today went through what you experienced at the beginning of your career?
Certainly, yeah, definitely. I think that feeling marginalized or left out of decisions makes people, when there's a decision, want to include others. So I think, and then in the end, for organizations, it's helpful. Obviously, you're making more comprehensive decisions. Your decisions are representing your employee base more, and employees see that when there are more people incorporated, it makes them feel valued and appreciated in the organization. So
that makes sense. Have you had mentors throughout your life that have helped you achieve your goals?
I have. I've been fortunate to have several mentors. I've been in organizations that had formal mentor programs, but for me, mentorship was most successful in an informal relationship. The one that comes to mind most when I think about mentors was a gentleman who was in finance, a leader in finance in a different area. And no, it's a male. Early in my career, I did not know a single female CFO. So a lot of my professional finance mentors were males. It's fine. I think that mentorship doesn't necessarily have to be the same gender, but I did have other mentors that were more cross-departmental in IT and sales, and they were my mentors as well. But the one in particular, going back to that, that I think of, he had a unique ability to connect with people where people were striving to be successful just because he had that influence. And he really respected my work. He had valuable insights. He always stretched, pushed me out of my comfort zone. And it was valuable for me because he opened other doors for me too in my career. So I've had that. I've had other, like I said, other mentors across the years.
So how important do you think mentorship is to young women aspiring to grow into leadership roles? And do you think in today's world there's an advantage if that mentor is a woman?
Ideally, it would be nice, a mentor you have to relate to as well. So ideally, a female mentor in the role that you aspire for would be the greatest match. Doesn't have to be. To me, yes, I think mentorship is very important, particularly to young women earlier in their career. They're aspiring to leadership. Mentors provide guidance, and they're going to help navigate obstacles with you. They'll provide advice. They're very, I think they're very important. They become an ally for you, really. And as I said, they can open doors that wouldn't otherwise be there if you didn't have that relationship. So I think I put a high emphasis on mentorship.
What can companies do to better support women in leadership and ensure that there's a more inclusive workplace?
I think basic that all organizations can do for women in particular. I think it's crucial that organizations have a very transparent path. When employees, male or female, know what their path is to the next step in their career, when they have a map for their success, it becomes more motivating. They're more excited, they're more engaged. And then in that path, you have to have milestones. They have to know, there has to be feedback. They have to know where they are in their progression. And then, like I said, they'll move quicker through the process. The other piece that's very important, this was stressed probably more in my early career, is work-life balance. I think today, work-life balance is not a perk, it's essential. And I think supporting that, ultimately, women can be successful in their day job if they feel secure that they can also address their responsibilities outside of work. So supporting that is big.
What advice would you give to young women who aspire to be a CFO?
So aspiring women towards a leadership role, a thought more so than an advice initially is that the journey is challenging and rewarding, sometimes both at the same time. But I think for young aspiring leaders, in whether it's in finance specifically, building your expertise and gaining your skills initially is crucial. In finance, a college degree is in most cases anticipated. The knowledge you gain in college is necessary for an aspiring leader, but it's not necessarily practical, and it doesn't necessarily come along with the skills. So in an initial career, it's important to build that, to gather as much knowledge as you possibly can, asking questions, going to seminars, absorbing as much as possible, because that knowledge and those skills are crucial. I mean, being a CFO is not just a title, it comes with the knowledge and that background. So that building that from the beginning is important. The other thing that I would say for women in particular is to be confident in their voice, to speak, not be afraid to speak, share ideas, speak up. It doesn't have to be a big, bold idea, but not to be afraid to share your ideas, because what I've learned over the years is, I had a good idea and I didn't share it. I should have just shared it to begin with. And if it's a bad idea, you just move on. Similar to our discussion on mentorship, building a network of allies is important. Having professional connections that you can go to, and they will cheerlead for you when you're taking on a new challenge. They'll help navigate tough times. Building those allies is important, and I've said before, they open doors for you. There's a lot of connections in the finance world. People move from company to company, and they know, in our area, it's 3 degrees of separation rather than 7. So that is another piece that's very important. Allies are fantastic.
So when we look at young women moving into leadership roles, I think there's certain fields where we've already seen that, much more so than say financial positions. I think, being in our industry, we deal with HR all the time, and many of the vice presidents of HR that we deal with are women. Whereas in finance, that glass ceiling hasn't been broken to the same degree. You just had 2 children who've gone through the West Dallas school system, so you're kind of right there on the front lines of what's happening in education. Do you think the schools are doing a better job of pushing or encouraging young women to pursue STEM-related fields?
I do think the schools they have a system in place to encourage STEM for women, or for girls. I think there's still a social aspect that girls are afraid to step forward into that. So there's a lot of work to be done, not just in West Dallas, I think in society in general, to have girls not be afraid to do the hard things. It's not even that I think that young girls don't want to do the hard science and math classes. I think that there's almost a fear, and peers come into play as well. So I think we have a lot of work socially to get girls there.
So if you could go back and give young Renee T. Devine one piece of advice, what would it be?
One piece of advice. One piece of advice would be, I'm going to give some background on it. When you're in college, you prepare to get all the right answers on a test, you do all the preparation for a presentation. So bringing that into my first job out of college, I always thought I had to have all the answers, the right answers, I should say. And it held me back a little bit. It made me take fewer risks than I should have. So I would have told myself, don't hold yourself back, take the risk, take the new role, speak up in a meeting, share ideas. That I learned later how much it doesn't necessarily harm anyone to share ideas and speak up, and so that's my advice.
Okay, that's good. You mentioned work-life balance earlier, and I do think parallel employment does believe that work-life balance is important, and our employees will be more productive, and they're going to have a better attitude, and our culture will be better if people feel like they're getting that balance. So with that, what is it you like to do in your free time that achieves that balance? I am a mom, and so I do like connecting with my family. We have a lot of fun. They keep me grounded. We travel a lot. Lately it's been a lot of international travel. I love getting lost in a good book, and I wouldn't call it photography as much as I like to take pictures of my kids' sports, our travel adventures, other activities. So those are probably, or my child's sports consume a lot of my time at this point. Okay. So I would like to thank you for joining us
Thank you.
today. This is the conclusion of another President's Corner for Parallel Employment Group.